Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, once again. Welcome to another iteration of the Simulationist podcast. This is the 81st of these simulations iterations.
I do believe that's a prime number.
81?
No, wait, divisible by 3. Never mind. Sorry.
81's a nice, it's a, what do you call it, a cube.
Oh, that's right.
Or is it a,
it's
not a cube, it's a double, it's a square.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I knew what you were meaning, sorry. I'm just getting over how I missed it divided by 3.
Well, it is odd, so that odd numbers often look prime. Also, we're recording this on the 23rd of March, 2014. You, of course, are probably listening far, far in the future. Well, actually, some of you are listening tomorrow.
Well, conceivably, barring the fall of civilization and electronic storage methods, it could be very far in the future indeed.
Oh, yeah, wouldn't that be awesome?
This could be like the equivalent of like those wax cylinders people wind up hearing, in the museum. Oh, Edison first recorded this one over 100 years ago.
An ancient format known as MP3.
I don't get it. MP3 what? 35? MP37? No, just 3. Oh, so ancient.
Not MP3 million?
Who knows? I mean, that's the weird part about the technology now. Is it's on the one hand it's so fragile, but on the other hand it has the potential to last a very, very long time.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, shall we get on into what we've been up to this week? What simulations have we been running?
What has Josh Treleaven been doing this week?
Well, a few things. One of them is I caught the latest episode of Community. That's it's a sitcom set in a community college.
The fan, much beloved by the fans.
Yes, it is a fan-loved thing that people love. It is a thing people like, and I like it too. And they just did their second Dungeons and Dragons episode.
That's right. I remember seeing the post up on Facebook from the Dungeons and Dragons fan page saying, "Hey, don't forget to DVR if you can't be there to watch it in person." Yeah,
and I enjoyed it very much. And nowadays we have. I mean, you can just go on YouTube and find pretty good, decent D&D content, like not just like D&D the game or D&D the movie, but also people playing the game, sort of.
Yes, I remember the Escapists doing a limited series with I think it was pornographic actors, not actually doing anything pornographic. It's just what they did, called like I Hit It With My Axe or something.
Okay, so
it's just kind of nice seeing different groups of people playing it and how their different styles wind up being.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people are very rules heavy. Other people say, well, can I do this? And the guy goes, yeah, I guess you're close enough. Why not? And so it's much more of a almost free-form style. And so that's always kind of groovy to see. So how did Community wind up playing the D&D style?
Well, I don't know how much I want to spoil, but it was good. That's not a spoiler. That was a good episode. And I like it because Community does... They sort of they're on the edge between, like, the show is absolute, like, real. It's sort of, there's no magic or no nothing. Well, weird things happen.
There's some like, I've seen some ludicrous things there and all that.
But it's not like they don't actually enter the world of Dungeons and Dragons. They don't actually enter that. But
so it's not like the gamers where you have like the one scene where it's the people at the table followed by them dressed up as their characters.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, I mean, I imagine if I was making a D&D show, I'd be very tempted to do that because you can do cool things with costumes. You can make a monster, and we love those. Like Standard Action has that, and we love that show. So that's...
So if you were doing it as your own sort of thing, would you try and make the graphics as realistic as possible for the special effects, or as cheesy as possible?
It probably depends on how much money I had. It actually, sort of I don't know if I'm right to think this way, but my feeling is that if you can't do like the super convincing, like, you know, the Peter Jackson, you know, the go all out and spend tons of money on everything. Mm-hmm. If you can't do that, you shouldn't even try. Does that sound bad? But no, I mean,
we are at the point where, because it is possible, if you can't do it that great, you're kind of doing a disservice to the genre, some people would say.
Yeah, and I feel bad saying something along those lines, but at the same time, I think that's how I feel, in that the important thing is the story. So if you're going to distract from the story with stupid costumes or like stuff that isn't 100%, then why not just focus on the story? Why not make the thing that you're producing be about the people?
What if you had it both ways? What if you had it so that each person and their special effects related to their character was as great as their imagination? So, you know, the one guy who's just playing like, whatever, my name's John the Fighter.
That's brilliant.
He winds up with just like a shirt that says Mithril written on it, and he's wielding, you know, like a sword made out of the side of a cardboard box. Whereas the guy, you know, who's playing, Reginald the Archmagus sort of thing, he's got a much more elaborate robe stuff on there, and his special effects look like special effects.
That's a brilliant idea. I hope somebody grabs that and runs with it, because I like that thought.
I think you could even wind up doing that, you know, if you're good at, you know, like your Flash animation, you could wind up doing it that way. So, you know, the one guy, you know, has much more detail. He's got shading under his, you know, the arms of his robe. Whereas the guy who's just playing like, well, geez, he's level 5. I never even gave him a name for whatever he is. His character's just kind of moving like a little block figure back and forth. You could have a lot of fun with that, and I think it could really highlight depths of imagination and who gets involved how much and why.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. I just came up with that.
Yeah, that's a clever idea. Let's pat ourselves on the back a little bit more.
Good ideas just happen, man.
No, we always come up with cool stuff on this podcast. That's why I like doing it.
That's hopefully why the people like listening to it. We're fecund with ideas.
Yeah. I guess people are listening too, aren't they?
It's always kind of weird to imagine someone out there is paying attention to what I'm saying right now. But I got to keep calm, man. I can't freak out at the concept that people are paying attention to me. Otherwise, who knows what happens?
Yeah, you might lose it. Oh, well, anyways.
It might go to my head, man. I might get all swollen ego.
We might be ranging into that territory now, anyways.
Okay, so yes, what else then this week, aside from a great episode of Community?
Yes, I watched that good episode of Community and enjoyed it, and I recommend it.
Just good or great?
Well,
how many dwarves do you give it?
13 out of 13 dwarves, yeah.
It was almost a full fellowship then. Very nice.
Yeah. I wouldn't ask for anything more from it.
Excellent.
And although I guess I would ask for another 30 minutes of the same content.
Maybe next season.
Yeah.
It could be like MASH with their Lieutenant Flag sort of thing. You don't want to go to the well too often.
Yeah.
You want to make it something that people keep wanting time after time, but you only give them in small doses.
Although, actually, that reminds me of a thought I had while I was watching the show. You know how Community, the framing device, the narrative is, or it was, they were a study group. Like, that was what brought them together, and that's the reason there's a show about these 5-6 people.
The original coming together.
The cast. They're a study group, and that's why they're important. And then because this is the 5th year of the show, college usually lasts 4 years, so some of them graduated. I don't think all of them did, but some of them graduated. It's like, well, how are we going to keep these, the older, like, how are we going to keep the show together when, school is, by its very nature, transitive.
Very finite, ideally. You could become a professional student, just go forever.
Well, that was the idea. Some of the characters, like Chevy Chase's character, Pierce, I think he was in the school for however many years, and he finally graduated at the end of, like, the 4 years, which is odd, but anyways, that's how that worked. And then for some reason, he's not in the show. I'm not sure why they took him out. I guess he died or something.
He's Chevy Chase and you're not. That's why.
Yeah. And television is hard. It's a lot of work, and not everybody doesn't always get along. And it's not just that they don't get along. Sometimes it's contractual stuff or
Sometimes you just want to relax. I mean, Chevy Chase is getting near retirement age. I'm pretty sure he wants to just relax, see what's going on. Maybe maybe try and find something in a more, background role. Help teach the new people. For all we know, he goes down to the local theater and he helps people out with their acting stuff down there. And that would be amazing. I like to imagine that's what some of the older greats do from the Saturday Night Live.
That's probably what they do. So the new framing narrative after the study group, because that's not a thing. So they became a committee for improvement that the schools, and it's a combination of students and teachers. That way they can keep the students who graduated, because one of the students became a teacher, and they added some cast members who are teachers and gave bigger roles to some sort of
previous background,
sort of background characters, but pretty much main characters. So the new framing narrative is the committee. But I was thinking, as I was watching the D&D episode, is, why couldn't you have a TV show that was the gaming group? I mean, we have the guild, that's a World of Warcraft guild or whatever, League of Legends, or I think it's their own game, so it's not any
League of Warcraft.
League of
Warcraft.
No,
wait, they're doing their own thing with that, aren't they? The Heroes of the Storm.
Oh, did they create their own, the actual game from the guild?
No, but World of Warcraft is doing a Defense of the Ancients style game of their own, involving all their own characters and that sort of thing. So you got like Diablo riding up Pegasus or something.
Okay.
I haven't seen a heck of a lot of the clips. I'm a little bit behind on that. Apparently they got a full-length clip to show you what sort of thing you're going to be getting into, so... it's going to be kind of weird to say. It's kind of like Defense of the Ancients meets World of Warcraft, because they're actually doing that now as a thing, so... Little weird. Oh, well.
Okay. So my thought was that, well, why not make the D&D group the framing device? I mean, I don't expect them to do that. I think they'll stick with whatever they've got going because it's working. But I was thinking, a TV show could work as just, it doesn't have to be supernatural or anything. It can just be, the same 5 or 6 people meeting every week to play a D&D game. And you can have stories based on that. It doesn't have to be, like the guild, bring in their families, they can have other problems. And that would be an idea for a TV show. Man, that would be fun to work on.
I'd at least give it a shot to watch, the lives of gamers, without it being reality TV, because I just don't see that going anywhere positive for the gamer image.
I mean, that's another topic, but I had an idea one time for, why not have D&D sort of in the style of World Series Poker? Have a recurring people who, come back to the table and play, and you get little bios. I think they might have something like that, tabletop that they do. Oh, yeah?
Yes, I go to the Wizards of the Coast website. Every once in a while they put up a new thing on that. I'm pretty far behind on that one, because I can't always just sit down and play and listen to it for a while, because I have to be careful about a little daughter of mine running around. I just can't get out of the zone until she falls asleep, and by then I'm tired myself.
And you can zone out into your shows.
Would that I could. Unfortunately, I'm pretty far behind, because when your kid sleeps, that's when you get sleep, and that's the first thing every parent learns.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
I will catch up to it sometime in the next 4 or 5 years. By then she'll be fairly independent. She'll be able to do her own thing without getting hurt. So.
Yeah, she'll be going to school or whatever. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. That's when I'll be working.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Unless she's got some nice... I have to
go to night school.
If she's doing extracurriculars later or after, I'm not going to go on the computer and do stuff. I'm going to go watch her. I'm going to see what she's doing. I want to be there to support her. I'm not just going to be, how was your day, sweetie, sort of thing. I want to be there, man.
Okay.
So.
Well, I mean...
I'll find time somewhere in the future to watch this.
The great thing about nerdy hobbies is that you never really have to grow up, and you can share them with your kids fairly early.
D&D is rated for ages 10 and up, so only 9 years and counting.
Yeah.
And maybe 7 if she proves to be mature and is okay with handling the math.
Well, and a lot of D&D parents will bring their kids in as soon as they can. It's like, get them
I could
started.
find some of those giant fuzzy plush dice. Yeah. Maybe I could get her to roll for me that way. We'll see how things go. I'll just play this whole thing by ear, though.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how we... Yeah, but anyways, that was what I did. I also did some game design, fun game design on the side.
Yes, we did a nice, was it pre-alpha trial sort of thing?
And yes, you and I did a 2-person playtest of my Hexagon Land game that I'm developing.
Hexlandia.
Still in very early stages. And
so no special abilities for laying down a land, nothing extra like this or that.
Yeah, it's just the basic core attack and defense kind of thing.
Well, I kind of like it because it has the tactics both from chess and that you want to have multiple options available to you, even though you can only do one thing per turn. Because, boy, if you could move every piece all at once in chess, that thing would get a nightmare.
Turn chess into real-time strategy, imagine that.
Well, if you've seen the people do the speed chess, it's almost like that.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
You got 5 minutes to play everything before the end of your game, and everyone smacking moves back and forth on the timer clock, and oof. But also has nice elements of converting lands back and forth like Othello does. So,
yeah.
So it's pretty nice that way, I think.
Yeah, so I think it has a core that's kind of fun to play, and like you turn the cards and you sort of you think about your space on the board. But I mean, it still needs a lot of tweaking as far as numbers go, and as far as
I think we came up with a lot of nice, interesting ideas. Something with the wall and the title can't wind up attacking a neighboring land.
Yeah. So walls, it's similar
walls
to
are
Magic,
pure defensive sort of thing.
Yeah, a lot like Magic the Gathering. Yeah, I'll be not stealing, borrowing, paying homage to many ideas from Magic the Gathering.
And who knows? Maybe they'll just say, well, suing them causes too much bad press. Maybe we'll just buy the rights from them, and then bam, you're set for a year, maybe. What, they give you $10,000? Yeah, that's like a year. You could just say, I'm not working this year, and just live off that.
Yeah, I could do that.
That sounds kind of awesome.
Yeah.
You should probably still work. It helps keep you part of society that way.
Well, move on to the next game, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I have too many ideas.
But that's part of what we do for the podcast is we put the ideas out there. We can't handle all the ideas that come up into our heads, so we give it out to the internet, and if they wind up being able to take it up, so much the better.
Yeah, hopefully people are getting, So, speaking of that game, there will be a chance for any listeners out there or anybody out there to also get in on it. Not quite yet, but soon I will be putting together a Kickstarter of it. And
there's some stuff to iron out first. Make sure you've got things nice, balanced. Make sure the numbers work out and all here and there.
Yeah. But, I'm not trying to necessarily make a polished and complete offering yet. Because sort of I want to get it out as soon as possible and actually get it moving. So people, if they get in early, it's going to be a non-finished, non-complete game, but they're going to be able to watch it progress.
But I do recall some games that are so weird and out there that, they probably could have withstood a round of public scrutiny to say, okay, you should probably get rid of these rules, and these rules, because they're all stupid and ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And maybe a lot more time just ironing things out before it gets presented, because it's very, we'll say, bumpy when you wind up trying to play the game. Works well from an imagination standpoint from the game design, but you want to make sure you get that out before you put out to the public and they say it's completely unbalanced because X.
Yeah. So. And I noticed too there are parts, like I tried to keep the core of it very simple, but there can be parts where it works out to be rather complex, and I imagine if the game stays roughly how it is, there could be players who get really, really good at it and who could really master it. And I'm not sure if that's something I necessarily want. I don't want it to be a game for elite players. I want it to be something that anybody can sit down and sort of have a chance at winning. So things to work out with it, but
and that's something really interesting to see too, because most people up until recently never got a chance to see anything but a more finished product. Some people got a chance to beta test this or that, but almost the majority of everyone who was going to wind up playing the game would only ever see the finished product. So getting a chance to actually sit down and figure out for yourselves how the rule systems go, what you want to do, what you want to consider for options and all that, how it plays out. That's interesting to see.
Yeah, and I hope it works out. And this is coming soon. This is hopefully in the next, I don't know. Well, I won't put a date on it.
Don't shoot on it, but you are working on it fast and furious.
But yeah, there will be something for players to get their hands on, and then I can get that whole. That's the other thing. A game like Magic the Gathering or this particular Hexlands game, or I'm not even sure on the name, but.
Hexlandia.
Hexlandia. It can be it really helps to have a lot of people sort of input on it, because it's complex and there can be things that, you know, the designer just doesn't see at first.
Doesn't see or foresee because, well, you know, they're around the people who play like themselves. You need the people who play differently.
Yeah, and I'll admit, like, as far as game design or games go, I don't think of myself as really an sort of that expert strategist. Like, I'm not very good at Magic the Gathering. Like, I can play it, but I'm not...
Sometimes it's all about the fun. So you want to see that the casuals have as much fun as the tryhards.
Yeah. So I'm looking at sort of, the casuals like me as sort of my intended audience, obviously, because they're bigger. There's more of them, more money. Not that it's necessarily
not
motivated
all about the
by
profit,
money. But that would be nice. And a lot of people have made games that are for very, like, advanced players, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like that's covered. And also those advanced
some of those
players,
tactical war games can get pretty complex as to who can do what and what's considered flying versus land and all that. Sometimes you just want to play a nice, easy, simple tactical game.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to try and keep it simple.
So it's nice being able to look at that, because I don't think there's like any definitive manual like how to design a game, chapter 1, you know, and here's like a chapter 2, you know, pitfalls to avoid.
There's probably some game design books out there, but
there's no authoritative manual. Not yet. If someone out there can, you know, get a hold of people who have made games in the industry and collect like a whole bunch of notes, you could wind up, like, conceivably writing a very nice, comprehensive, you know, book that could be considered, like, if you're going to design a game, you got to at least read this. So there's another idea out there for those who want to do research and read a novel.
It would be, and well, there are such a huge variety. I mean, we have this whole podcast is technically it's devoted to games, and we will never get to all the different varieties of experiences that are possible just in the sort of field of simulating stuff and, you know, having fun.
I mean, just look at the amount of video games that come out any given year. There's no way we could be expected to play all of them and examine them without, you know, like a really decent budget behind us. That's... Well, the other thing is you kind of need someone like, you know, like a game magazine like The Escapist or, you know, Destructoid to effectively sponsor you to, you know, get you the copies of the games. Because, I mean, those things are $60 a pop, and if you're going to be doing like 2 of those a month sort of thing, that adds up to a lot of cash. You got to get yourself the bankroll for that. That's...
well, if there are any game company people listening to this podcast right now, we will consider all the, you know, how magazines stuff, they get
the promo copies,
promotional or review copies. So we're up for that.
And I mean, I'll swear, man, I won't just turn around and sell it off on like eBay or anything.
You won't. Will you leak it if it's like Half-Life 3 or something?
It would have to be really, really well priced for me to leak it.
No, I'm just kidding.
Because, I mean, you know, I do put my integrity at a high price here. So if I'm going to violate that, it's got to be for some sweet moolah. Some, like, really sweet moolah. Probably not cost-effective for you to steal, you know, from me that way. So
I think my integrity is worth probably about $10,000.
See, that's the base minimum for me, I mean. It only goes higher from there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a good week of learning the ropes of game design.
Learning
tabletop game design, not just, you know, programming game design.
Yeah, well, and I think sort of my view on it is that they're actually quite similar in some ways. I mean, they have their differences, but I sort of... I mean,
it's not too hard to make a new card sort of thing, but if you want to do something new in a game, you got to start doing a lot of programming and check and double check. So
yeah, and I don't have the complete skill set for that necessarily, not yet anyway. So should we get to what simulations you've been running?
Well, not as much as I'd like to, sort of thing. You know, I've been doing more of the XCOM and playing that, and more of as I said the last couple of weeks, is, you know, I wanted more out of XCOM. I mean, I love it, but I want stuff like motorcycles. I want my guys to be able to like get off the ship and just go zipping around on motorbikes. You know, high navigation sort of speeds. It's not too hard, right? Like a high class, you know, like Yamaha, I think, zooming around.
Yeah.
Penalty to defense or whatever mechanics. So, you know, I'm working on that sort of thing, like notes as I'm working on like the tabletop stuff myself there.
Okay.
It's like, what would I like to see? And, you know, what's this going to equivocate out to, and how's this going to wind up going, and all that. And I'm doing an interesting amount of that. I got a chance to see a very nice classic movie this week. Murders at the Rue Morgue. 1932, going back, 80 years now. 82 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's ancient now, man.
Okay.
But it's based off the short story by Edgar Allan Poe, about which is considered the first detective story. Without Edgar Allan Poe writing this, there probably would not be a Sherlock Holmes. Might not be Batman as you know him. He might be a mass vigilante, but he wouldn't be the world's greatest detective, sort of thing. I found that to be quite interesting, and there were some nice themes in there, but what caught me the most was the lack of music. Because there were some dark things happening there. And, if they played it, like the dramatic music, sun, 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 and he's doing evil things, and he's coming closer and closer, and they play, the heightening of the music as he comes closer, da, 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 da. Yeah. If that had played, then it would have seemed more theatrical, and then it wouldn't have seemed as disturbing. But what he was doing without the music played very, very dark.
Interesting. So I wonder, in the 30s, was that a convention, or was it just not invented yet? Or not developed? Or do you think they deliberately chose to do the silence?
Silence was much more common back then. For just the lack of background music. I mean, watch anything these days. If there's like an action type scene, there will be music to accompany to help heighten your emotions.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much universal at this point, unless the movie is trying to do something different.
Yeah, like a realistic standpoint, in which case they won't have like any music sort of thing. But they might have like heightened. You hear the creaking of the floorboards. There's always something in there. The last thing I recall for anything that was purposely very, very quiet was Samurai Jack, in an area where he'd be walking in peace. You'd hear just the footsteps, and it'd be very quiet, very thing. And then the robots come in and all these noises. And so it shows a nice highlight between nature versus the machines and the society and the whole nastiness that Aku was doing.
Yeah, cool.
Whereas this one here, it made it seem more real because there's no music in real life. Mm-hmm. And so I found that to be a really interesting touch.
There is music in real life.
Well, not when you're doing dirty deeds. It doesn't matter if they're done dirt cheap. You don't hear the song in the background when it's happening, unless you're purposefully doing it with music in the background.
Yeah.
But as it was just very quiet and very disturbing that way. I think it's something more people should look into when they want to portray like a disturbing scene. Have it just be only the sounds that are actually happening. Because it caught me. I mean, the movie's 82 years old, and the scenes caught me, and I was really paying attention to them because of the lack of music. It made it more. The starkness just enhanced every part of it.
Well, do you remember the movie that came out it was called A Knight's Tale, and it was about. I think it was an adaptation of Chaucer, but it was in the medieval times. But instead of the whole classical music, which we're all used to in the movies, they put top rock and roll hits. I
do believe I remember that. That was with what's his face who played the Joker before his final role, Heath Ledger.
Oh yeah.
I think he was one of the main characters now, and so I do remember that.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said about anachronistic music. I mean, that was apparently a big thing that they were considering for the Conan movie with Arnie Schwarzenegger in there.
Oh yeah, they were going to do
they were going to do contemporary stuff. See if we can get Queen. They did a really nice ballad for Flash Gordon back in the day. Maybe we can get them to do one for Conan. Conan, whatever. Yeah. See who they can get for that stuff. But they wound up going with Basil Polydoros with his classical score, and that completely made it. What I mean?
Yeah.
I love the soundtrack. I have the soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's great music, and I don't think it could be seen as properly period style. If it was a different style of music, it would be seen more like maybe it takes place far in the past. Maybe it takes place after World War III destroys everything. Mm-hmm. It could go either way, but with the classical score, it really did have a much more eldritch feeling to it.
Yeah, it feels kind of timeless,
Yeah. So I wound up being really big into paying attention to the music as how things go.
Yeah, and then a show with no music, it's like, what is that?
it really caught my attention because in a way it was almost like when you're alone, in your house or your apartment or whatever, and you hear the creaking happening outside, like outside your room. It's like, I'm here alone. What was that creak? And then all of a sudden you're paying attention to every little sound. You hear the refrigerator in the background. You hear the traffic, down the road, and all of a sudden everything becomes hypersensitive because there's no natural sound. And I found it very similar in that method. So that was big for me this week. I was paying attention to the music in the movies.
Very cool.
Yeah. Other than that, I wish I could have said it. I've done more. Well, the Marvel game I play on Facebook, I hate to say this, but I had some fun reading angry people. Because they had effectively the game split into two areas. One for the people at the Playdom site, which is the people that host Marvel, and the one who do it on Facebook. Now, for whatever reason, they're closing down the Playdom site. And they're not transferring the stuff over, so you can't take your high-level guy with all your high-level gear and just convert him over to a Facebook, game.
Oh.
So there's a lot of angry people there. And I'm trying to find the people that are saying, I'm switching over, so I'll, sign them up as a friend so that they have someone to work with who, will be able to give them a decent ability once a day sort of thing and help them out. Because they're starting from scratch. And so I'm helping out as I can there. But I have to say, just seeing the pure anger, I'm getting like a weird kind of schadenfreude just seeing this raw emotion there. Because, it's nice to see how deep this game has affected people. Some of them have spent real money. I don't know how much. I don't want to ask how much. That's as rude as asking how much money you make. How much did you spend on this game?
Right.
But yes, there are some people that it's like the fact that it's like you have 1 month and then this game for you will no longer exist. It's like you just like slicing raw nerves and veins and everything. It's just like almost like an autopsy of how much they loved the game, or loved, because it can turn to hate pretty quick in that sort of circumstance.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice seeing the responses and all that, because most of the time you go to a game's forums and all that, it's like, this is unbalanced, nerf this, I hate this, why are you doing this? And it's a lot of complaints, but you don't see like the real anger that you do is when a game is shutting down.
And you like this?
Well, I've seen a few other games shut down that I've played throughout the time. Not very big, not very thing. It was good for its time, and then people wound up going elsewhere because the game bored them after a while, and so they said, okay, we're going to sunset the game. It'll be going on until about this time, 3 months down the road, and then it'll be taken off. And the people are like, well, it was a good run. I kind of had fun, made some nice friends while I was doing it. Okay, goodbye. And so it just doesn't seem like it's like everyone was just kind of waiting for the game to shut down. Nobody was really big on it continuing, except for perhaps the people getting their paychecks from it.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to see a game that when it winds up getting shut down, people are just trying to raise hell, and say, I'll sue you for everything. I spent money on this game. How dare you shut me down? Blah, 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 blah. And so it's nice to see some actual reaction as opposed to, well, it was kind of nice and I had a lot of fun, especially in this area and that, and I met these people. Okay, let's all have fun. Goodbye. And it's like, well, yeah, it's just, don't you feel sad that the game's ending at all? Where's your emotions? And this one actually caused it, and I don't like, hearing that, these people, all the hard work they've gone to is just going to wipe out. Well, the game is still pretty darn popular as, these little online clicking games go.
Right.
But, it's nice to see people being alive in that way and just expressing themselves without it being like weird trollisms or the other stuff you need to evoke the emotions.
Well, I wonder too, like with other sort of aspects, with other media, with other parts of culture, like film or books and stuff. When sometimes libraries get shut down, and sometimes people don't see a lot. But often, what happens is, a library in a local area will get, they're like, okay, we're going to shut this, and then people will sort of rally and be like, no, we want to protect our library.
Well, so that's the thing, is what they wind up doing with a lot of the little local libraries is they're like, okay, now we can accept deposits any time, but we'll only be open like 3 days a week. We'll only be open 2 days a week. We'll only be open every other week. We're not opening at all.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So they slowly wean you off of your, I get books for free. All I need to do is go there and just find out which ones I want.
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, the internet is in a lot of ways taking over where the library used to function.
Sadly, though, it doesn't necessarily help the people in the more rural areas who can't get the big, wide internet connections to make up for this.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like, oh boy, I want a book. Okay, it's downloading now. I'll be back in an hour. Hopefully it'll be done by then if my connection hasn't hung up or somebody phones. Because it's a dial-up. Because, those are the places that wind up getting hit the hardest.
Yeah, the rural places, yeah.
But, it's just, like I said, it's nice to see that emotion out there, even if it's not the best emotion, even if it's not happy emotion. It's like, oh God, you guys are wonderful, I love this game. And, you're not going to see that on the forums. I mean, that's just not going to ever happen. That's just how things go, I'm afraid. So, yeah, that was my week.
Cool.
Yeah. By and large, we do have one part of an interesting bit of the conspiracy news story, or at least from a perspective of novel writing and all that.
Well, there is no more news. We're thinking about the Malaysian plane that went down, and we're thinking like, oh well, it's probably never going to be found, right?
Well, that's the thing. Is the plane itself is 75 feet total, I believe, and they're not expecting to find the whole thing because when a plane hits water, because it's crashing, so it's likely to break up. Because, water at that speed tends to act like a solid. So unless the guy, whoever was piloting it specifically decided to try and put it as low as possible and then crash it where it was all in one piece for whatever reason, then is the only chance you're likely to find the whole thing. So you're looking in the Indian Ocean, which is one of the largest, and least traveled areas, and you're going to try and find at most 75 feet by, I don't even know how wide it is. It can't be more than 30 feet, I believe. Yeah, about 10 meters. Yeah, that sounds about right. Except for the wings. Yeah. And so it's not even saying like looking for a needle in a haystack. It'd be like it's like looking for a needle in the Okanagan.
Yeah, and I was speculating too. Like, is there going to be people in 50 years, like some new generation, doing a podcast and like going through the history books and being like, oh,
things that were never found.
In 2014, a plane went missing and they never found it.
And that's the thing is because like the chances of it being found are really slim at this point, and the fact that there's been so much misinformation, so much bad information, contrary information, delayed information, it's firmly ensconced in this wonderful ball of conspiracy web potential.
Yeah.
And so, all told, this has the markings of becoming a wonderful styled urban myth, like on the style of D.B. Cooper. The guy who wound up robbing a bank and then he dove out of a plane, somewhere in Washington State, I believe? Somewhere in Washington State on a rainy night, and then no one ever saw him again. I think they may have found part of his parachute, but after that, like nothing. So no one's certain, is he alive, is he dead, who was D.B. Cooper, what's the whole thing going on? And it was also balled up with, delayed information, bad information, and weird news stories. And so this has all the marks of becoming an urban legend as to what happened to it.
Yeah, well, and I mean, what happened to it can be legend. I mean, we know that it disappeared, so that part is true. But after that,
even if they do find it, there's still not going to be a lot of answers as to why this all happened as it did, unless they find like a hidden manifesto on like one of the pilot's computers. It's all, I'm going to say, pretty much a guarantee. No one's going to know the whole story of why this happened as it did.
Okay.
And so that's the big question that's always in amongst the urban legends. Is like, why, what happened? Why did it go down like this? And then people come up with their own answers, and that forms the web of intrigue and lies and bad information that forms, your standard, urban legend. And so I just think analyzing it this week from the perspective of like where it'll wind up becoming in 50 years, provided nothing is ever more found, because chances are nothing ever more will likely be found at this point. And just extrapolating it out into the future, if you want to design your own urban legend, like it's like, okay, back in the 50s, something happened, and like, okay, what am I going to do for my novel, because I want to write a nice little multi-generational, whodunit sort of story. This is how you work it out.
It would be interesting if it like went through a time vortex or something, and like the plane just reappeared 50 years from now or 100 years from now, with the people not having aged at all. Just for them it was just instant. Maybe they went through a storm or something, but then It's like suddenly 100 years later, Rip Van Winkle or whatever, but with a whole plane full of people. Oh, that'd be a good TV show. Maybe. I don't know.
I think... No, wait. Stephen King did the Langoliers? Where they went out of time by only a fraction of a second. And then there were the things that eat the past. That look kind of like a combination between an amoeba and a chainsaw. But no, they didn't actually wind up like time deprived. Although I'm pretty sure some of those people that have disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle area, people have written stories about them coming out 100 years later.
Mm-hmm.
There was a movie, I think, based on the Manhattan Project, where they effectively get time displaced.
Okay, yeah.
So that might be worth looking up. I'd have to double check on that one.
Yeah,
it's been a while since I saw that one. They don't play it on TV very often. I don't know why. But yes. So if you want to look at it from where it is now and where it's going to extrapolate out to, and how it gets cocooned with what ifs, I don't knows, and but they said later on that this.
Yeah.
And that's how conspiracy theory starts. That's how urban legends start. For instance, the whole thing about Roswell, New Mexico, with the whole landing stuff. A lot of the factors of what people say now happened didn't originally appear until 20 years after, when people went back and said, okay, what do you remember? And, I mean, most people have a very hard time remembering much of what they did, a week ago, what their sandwich was a week ago, even if they wound up getting sick off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to say, what were the events of the day, sort of thing. And so it's on sudden, one person walking by that they don't recognize becomes 4 guards, armed with rifles, because 20 years have passed and memory is very mutable.
Yeah, that's true. That's a funny point too, because you think of your everyday ongoing life as something that sort of matters from moment to moment, but things can change so rapidly that I don't know why we get all so wrapped up in sort of our continuity and just surviving. Well, I mean, obviously we have our instincts for survival, but why do we get wrapped up in our own sort of narrative and history when it could, well, I guess, it can just change, and you don't even I don't know, it's just a memory after that.
Yeah. Right, but the sad thing is that as much as you'd like to believe that your memory is going to be the same memory you have in 2 decades from now, it's not. I'm willing to bet we come back to this one in 2034. We are going to have very bad memories as to exactly what happened with that whole missing Malaysia flight sort of thing.
Hello, future self. Yeah, this is what I was doing in 2014. What do you think?
Well, it depends to see how things wind up going. But I mean, that's the nature of it. And so if you want to wind up writing a story that involves an urban legend, and you want to look at it, through the time, if it's very close to, the past, what happens, memories are going to be much more clear, much more distinct.
Mm-hmm.
As you go further away from the event, things, well, I mean, you can almost imagine it as like having a shadow. The further, away it gets from the source, that it gets more blurred and more bigger, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so, other things can wind up being added on to it, later date, this was kind of like another story happening there, and so in most people's minds, the 2 factors just kind of come into one, and then what was 2 separate stories, people suddenly imagine as being somehow connected.
Yeah. Well, that's the way, stories and testimonies work, but of course, if we had physical evidence, that would be a different beast, because you can say, well, this sort of science, you can say this piece of the plane can be traced, and it definitely was part of the plane. It wasn't part of some other plane.
And we can tell from this here, it was a metal fatigue issue going on this way, and this was affecting it. Because I hate to say it, but verbal testimony is one of the lowest forms of accepted evidence in most legal cases.
True. Yeah, I think
that's
true.
why what the most people advise in their legal capacity is after an event has happened, you write down everything you know and when, and that way, if everyone says, well, how do you know it happened so well? It's like, well, like 4 days later, I wrote down the account of the events, and it's all right here. This is as best as I can recollect, while it was still very fresh in my short-term memory.
Yeah.
So there you go. And that has much heavier weight than somebody says, oh, but I remember it differently, and they say, well, yeah, but that was 3 months ago, and your memories have faded, and you don't have something that was written down and and signed like 4 days after.
Yeah, and we get mad at when sometimes public officials or the
I don't
CEO
recall
of a
what
company
happened on that date.
Yeah, they say they don't know, and we get mad at that just because they probably did something wrong and bad.
Oh, what's his face? Was it Robert Rodriguez?
I don't know.
He was part of the whole thing. He was being just absolutely mocked on late night television because he kept saying, "I don't recall, I don't recall, I don't recall." Now, whether or not how much he actually recalled and how much he was lying in front of the Congress saying he didn't recall, that's up for speculation.
Yeah.
Some people just don't have a good memory that way, and so as much of ridicule as he was getting, it was a little unfair because, like you can remember, just off the top of your head what you were doing, last, July 27th.
Yeah, it's hard, and that does make it an easy excuse. It's an easy way to get out of telling something because it's an easy thing to believe that people forget stuff because people forget stuff all the time. So. And
mind you, if you're in a decently important job and you're okay with being able to write down your stuff, keep a log of your events, keep like a journal of what you did that day. That way, when if you ever get called up to the thing and say, what was I doing on that day? I don't recall myself, but I do have notes from when I entered in my journal entry for that day, and this is what I did. That's what scientists wind up doing. They take all the notes they can of an event, and that way, if the scientific process goes awry for them, they can go back and trace back, so they don't have to remember. Now, what did I do it that way? What was the dilution? Okay, I think it was 1 in 4. No, they wrote it down in their scientific journal. Everything's written down. As many notes as possible taken. Anything goes wrong, they can trace back and pinpoint.
Yeah.
Okay. It was supposed to be a 1/5 dilution, 4 samples, as opposed to 5 samples with a 1/4 dilution.
That's good.
That's what I did wrong.
I sort of want to keep similar records when it comes to game design and development. Is that keep records of how you like I had to cut out using scissors and stuff. So I have to I had to invent a method that.
Because it's not just like cutting out like squares, 90 degrees, move this far. So you had to do a thing there.
Yeah.
Although effectively now that you've got some cut out, you can trace.
Yeah, I can trace, but my method was I guess I'll reveal my secret method. I have a thicker cardboard backing, and then printed out a template with 10 hexagons per that fit on the paper, anyways. And then I put that on top, and then on top of that blank cardstock, and then at all of the intersections, I put push pins. So there's a push pin in 6 per hexagon, although some hexagons share sides. So the paper is covered in those push pins, and then take out the push pins, and then I'm left with a page with just holes, just here and there.
And then you
but
connect
if I cut
the
from
dots.
hole to hole,
Nice.
just using scissors, handheld scissors.
So that's a nice trick, and if you were to, have to put that aside because something, comes up in real life, and you come back what was I doing? How did I do this before? At least you got a record of it now.
Yeah, and the other thing, I was looking on the internet, I was trying to find out, has anybody tried, cutting out or, printing, and, I talked to a print shop, and they're saying, well, you can get a custom, like a die cutter or whatever, something that's built with that pattern, but that's $2,000 or something, which I might, if the game works well, if my Kickstarter campaign works, I might buy a machine like that. But
so it cuts properly, cuts easy.
Yeah.
Very nice.
But keeping track of different methods and
Well, and I mean that's a very good thing. I mean, I recall a few web artists who they come back to something after a while and they go, I have no idea what font I was using for my characters. I've got a lot of fonts that look similar, but nothing looks right. I don't recall what size it is. Did I do bold? What was going on with the color palette here? None of that. And then again, I see some other people, it's okay, here's my character here. This is the color tone I'm using here, and I've got little splash samples on the side showing the colors. I is this color here. Make notes this way here. And that way they have a nice reference sheet whenever they're going back. This person is 5'3", so I make sure I make sure they appear shorter next to this person here, and how much that way.
Yeah.
And so that's very good. It very much does help everyone out on that.
Yeah, so almost any job that you're doing, keeping records is handy, I suppose.
Well, up to a certain point. I mean, if you take too much records, then you slow down in actually getting things done.
Yeah.
So you got to find that split line between getting enough information so that everyone knows what happens if something went wrong versus actually getting enough stuff done in a day.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a nice tangent away from conspiracy theories.
Tangents, yeah.
Information is the counter-agent to conspiracy theories and urban legends. So the more you want to develop those in your stories, the more ifs and maybes you have to have. If you want to make sure that, and that, there's a reason for a MacGuffin right there. Is somebody wrote something down like 2 days after the event, what they remembered.
Well, maybe
we
journal
need
missing.
this journal entry because that's got so much clearer and more precise, like a sequence of events than what everyone was saying 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
There's your reason for everyone to be chasing down the diary, especially if the person who wrote it is now dead because, I don't know, reasons.
Eldritch horrors.
Eldritch horrors, somebody's off in them because they can trace them back to the real killer.
Okay, yeah.
Depending on how the nature of your story goes.
Yeah.
So I think that's another good couple of hints and helpful advice for writing a decent story.
Good, cool.
Yes.
Ready for a main topic?
I do believe we have a decent main topic tonight.
Well, we'll see how well it goes with this conversation. I wanted to talk about absurdity and non sequiturs and nonsense things and things that come up randomly, sort of out of the blue, and how those affect stories and what to do with them.
Well, on the one hand, they're very memorable. Douglas Adams' 5-book trilogy, with Arthur Dent, and all that. So long, thanks for all the fish, and all that is heavily peppered at best, you can say, with absurdities and just weird tangents that go off on explaining little weird side facts here and there. You could probably condense everything down to one book if you cut out all those little side passages and all those little extra weird things.
Yeah. Well, I like to give an example. There's a passage about a whale that appears out of nowhere and just
they turn on the improbability drive, and the two missiles that were aimed at them, one turns into a whale, the other turns into a potted plant.
Yeah. And I like that because it's a leap. It's a complete now it's a whale. There's no connection. It's a non sequitur. It doesn't follow. That's what the Latin non sequitur does not follow. It's not in sequence. There's no cause and effect. But at the same time, he then develops this whale. I don't know how he came up with the idea, but then he develops it, and he tells this little short story about how the whale is living for, and it's...
I'm alive! Oh, how wonderful. I wonder what that thing is rushing up to meet me.
Go, yeah.
Oh, so great to be up.
And I was thinking, that's just basically human life, just sort of compressed. That's basically how we live. We're alive, and we're happy to be alive, and we're amazed, and we're confused, and then we die. So I like that because it seems like it doesn't connect, but then he writes in.
It's a microcosm of life itself, really.
Yeah. So in some
Meanwhile,
ways,
the potted plant just thinks to itself, "Oh no, not again." And a whole bit about if metaphysical philosophers could understand what this means, we could get so much further in understanding the nature of the cosmos.
Yeah.
But we can't, sort of thing.
So there's Douglas Adams, one example, anyway.
And that's what people remember his stuff for, as being so near absurdist.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, I think a lot of the online stuff for the abridged series here and there works on that sort of principle as well.
Yeah.
They juxtapose what for the characters, what they should be like, and then they come up with something different. Person has a funny voice, or a personality that's so completely different from what they expect. It seems like nonsense. It just doesn't seem to follow. How did you get that? And the plot winds up deviating wildly from where it's supposed to be. And that's some memorable stuff. I recall the Freeman's Mind. Freeman himself in the Half-Life series is a silent protagonist. He's notoriously silent protagonist. People have made jokes about this for years about how he's just so dang quiet. And what it is basically the running thoughts inside his head. And it turns out he's a little bit of a foul mouth, kind of a big talker sort of thing. Not exactly the uptight scientist everyone imagines him to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in the first episode alone, he's like, I don't care that I'm late for work. Wait, and there's, what's going on here? Did I just see nuclear waste? Is that a thing down there? Why did we even see that? Why am I allowed to go by there? To a whole bit about him trying to steal somebody's, microwaved food. To, and it's I just need to get into my locker and find my drugs, sort of thing. And no, someone's, raided his locker. There's no drugs in there. It becomes absurd because the character of Freeman is an upright, a scientist that becomes a hero. When no, he's really, just got all these wild thoughts that maybe it's good he's not speaking. He wouldn't have many friends if he spoke his mind.
Yeah.
And that makes memorable stuff happen. And then, I suppose you have the what people hear a song in another language, like the Numa Numa song got big and mimetic back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you just there's people that are like, oh, hey, what's this song from Japan? I heard it on the movie. What the heck are they saying? And somebody just takes what it sounds like, and they wind up trying to make that match into English.
Yeah.
And they're not actually translating it at all. Just it sounds like this word was this. So what sentence do I get from there?
Yeah. And I love what I love about that is that the human brain does this weird thing where it catches one little snippet of a sound that sounds like something else, and it says, okay, I'm going to work with that. Like, it sounds like fish, so I'm going to work with this sound that sounds like fish.
And what does the rest of the line work into around fish?
And then, yeah, the ideas that your brain then fills it in with often are like, and then I saw a fish on a table. It's sort of like that can make sense. Like, there could be, you could have a fish on a table because maybe you're eating it, or, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. Like, then I saw a fish on the ceiling. It's like, wait, what?
Could be on the windowsill for all we know.
Or, yeah, and meanwhile, it is still, it's just gibberish. It's a different, not gibberish, but it's another language that we don't understand.
I do believe the term was it apophenia? Making a connection where none exists is the technical term for it. And so here's the bit that gets me. Played under the right way, it's good comedy. Absurdism is good comedy. But it's the same sort of principles that connect nothing to nothing to create something that causes, like, schizophrenia, which is very much not comedy.
Yeah, that's true. And
so this winds up being, like, if you look at it the right way, two sides of the same coin. You got your comedy-tragedy sort of thing going on there.
Yeah. Well, it's the human brain doing what it does, and then if it's off by just a little bit, or something's just a little bit out of balance, that causes problems.
Or sometimes you just don't see the connections between the two. I mean, maybe they exist. Like, some person's thinking A leads me to B, to C, to D, to E, and then they announce from A to E, and you don't see the intervening parts. It seems almost absurdist, but then you can, like, mentally trace the route and go, okay, I think I understood where they're coming from.
Yeah, that's true. And that's, like, I guess going all the way back to high school, when you write essays for the first time, it's like, don't just... Or essays or math homework for that matter. Don't just give the answer. Show your work. Like, show how you get from.
And I mean, I gotta say, I love my wife, but sometimes I have a problem in communication with her because she's been thinking through the whole thing, and she'll wind up saying the last part of it, and I'm like, this came out of nowhere, and it means like almost nothing to me. What does this mean? What does that mean? What does the other mean?
Wait till Zoe starts talking.
I remember being a kid, but I mean, that's the thing with kids too, is they don't always put the connection like I can't hear your thoughts, my little one. How did you get to that wonderful conclusion?
Yeah, well, and they've based entire TV shows on the premise of kids and the things that they say.
They say the darndest things, apparently.
They say darn things.
Well, I mean, that comes from, like, having an incomplete view of the world sort of thing, and just not being able to put things right. Like, the concept... Like, it always got me weird, like, in the head thinking, like, some people... I remember way back, it'd be, like, grade 1, 2. And they'd be saying, like, oh, yeah, 30 is, like, really old. And so if you're a 30-year-old person, you were, like, ancient. And I remember thinking to myself, but, I'm 8. And I remember when I was 6 thinking, wow, can you remember, what it would be like to be 8? I mean, that's so much older. I mean, that's like a third of my life more to be 8. And 8 doesn't seem like very old now. Yeah. And so 10 seems old to me now. But I bet you in 2 years, it's not going to seem like, oh, wow, that's 25% more, life experience I've gotten. I feel so aged and wise now. So maybe 30 isn't old. It just seems that way from this perspective. Maybe only the people that are really, really old are the people that are really, really old. Like, statistically weird people. Like, you don't see a lot of 90-year-old people walking around. So maybe those are the people you should be thinking of as ancient.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a weird thought to have at age 8. Being able
you're thinking this all at 8? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I still remember it, being able to mentally track down to, like, well, maybe it won't seem like... And sure enough, when I turned 30, I'm like, I remember that mental conversation. I don't feel ancient. I don't feel as young as I used to. I mean, I remember being 24 and, having a 6-pack and pipes. That was pretty sweet. But I don't feel ancient right now. It's not bad. That's not bad. Let's just double this number. Let's find out what it's like at 60. I don't think it'll wind up feeling, ancient then, but we'll find out. And so, it's with kids, it's a lot of just not being able to grasp that bigger concept and picture because they've only got so much experience. They have to wind up sitting down, staring out the window, and just thinking their own thoughts for a while for them to riddle out the mysteries of the cosmos or something. But yeah, you just ask a kid what they're thinking, and if they can speak to you, chances are it's going to be weird, insane little things.
Yeah.
Because they're not explaining their full thought processes. They might not even be aware of how they're thinking.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, you, like I was saying, you only need a little piece of a thought, and then your brain fills in the rest, and it's become something that looks completely different. Like,
well, I remember if you look at some of the Onion stories, they seem like almost ludicrous unless you start picturing the bigger image behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Like a news story about how for some reason a 15-year prison sentence failed to rehabilitate a man because he was perpetually afraid of his own life and health throughout the entire time. How dare this happen? This has never happened before. And so they make like a big news article like, oh my God, how could he not be reformed after 15 years of being perpetually afraid? And it's in this case used to highlight the bigger situation of the prison system where, of course, they're not reformed because that's not being the core objective. It's just serving the time. It seems to be the core objective now.
Yeah.
Which, seems weird because, it is the penitentiary system. You're supposed to try and get them to be penitent.
Yeah, something like that. I still haven't figured out, especially considered, like, I've sort of dabbled it a little bit in networking, sort of, meeting people, and you do that when you're on a podcast, too, is you make contacts and you schmooze and whatever. And I was thinking, like, for a person in jail, the people that you network with, or, the people that you're interacting with, like, half of them, or 80% of them, or whatever, are criminals, and the others are guards, or...
And that's apparently the main problem with the penitentiary system. The chances of you becoming penitent are related to how many other, proper, upright, moral citizens are about you.
Yeah.
So in which case, I suppose you really got to start just pumping that, system just absolutely full of psychologists and people to help rehabilitate them properly, if you want to, see actual penitence and a, better rehabilitation rate.
Now, I suppose the answer to this, like, if this can be a public service announcement, is that sort of regular people, like, people like you and me, probably should do some kind of, I don't know, work or like outreach to prisons or something like that, just so that they can have just connections with sort of normal people in society, but I don't know,
law-abiding citizens.
Sort of, yeah, the people who are not caught in the system. They need interactions with people outside, and that's sort of...
Which is, not to say that it doesn't go both ways. I mean, the whole concept of like, oh, there's a prison in that part of the neighborhood, don't go there. The prisons are nasty places full of horrible people. Whereas I recall a thing where the prisoners, they spent time like making crafts and all that, and then they wind up like having a fair sort of thing, and they'd wind up selling their goods. Now, they weren't properly allowed to, be, like out and about, so they were effectively, like behind, like the fiberglass prison wall sort of thing, and it worked like you get the money in this way, and out goes the trinket sort of thing, and they were allowed to talk and say, oh yes, I made this myself. You can see the lines here, and so the people, the law-abiding citizens wound up not seeing the criminals as criminals anymore. They saw them as people.
Yeah.
Which goes a long way to thinking better of your fellow man who happens to be in prison sort of thing. It's like, oh, he's not just a statistic. It seems like a very nice man. It's a shame he's in prison. Oh, murder? I never would have imagined.
And that's the problem, is because they are often...
so segregated from society.
Yeah, and they're repulsive in some ways. I mean, they've done repulsive things. So
murder, for shame. I don't even want to see you.
Yeah.
And it seems to be the thing as to why people are going to prison now is this: the whole thing is just to get you out of society's hair for X many years.
Yeah.
I don't know if I buy that myself.
It's
a line of reasoning.
Yeah, I don't think we'll solve it on this podcast. How did we get to prison?
But
there's a cool game. Have you seen the prison manager game? What is it called? Prison Architect, I think it's called.
I believe I remember hearing about that. I've never played it or seen like a Let's Play game on it.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of Roller Coaster Tycoon, Zoo Tycoon, that sort of. It's
Sim Tower and that sort of thing.
It's a two-dimensional top-down view of a prison yard, and you get to build the different buildings. And here's our hospital, or not. maybe not hospital, but clinic, I guess, or you can hire a doctor.
Infirmary.
Yeah, I think that's what they call it. Yeah, you hire a doctor, you hire psychologists, you have wardens and guards and nurses and garbage or handymen and basically everything you need, and then you get a shipment of prisoners. Like here's a bus pulls up with 20 prisoners, and hopefully you've got all your stuff built so they each have a cell to go to, and then they.
Wait, that's better than some places here in Canada who they've got the double bunking.
Well, it's true because, and I think this is why the game is interesting, because it is a problem because you're given sort of limited funds and you have to house these people, and they're not allowed to leave. You have to contain their entire lives within this complex, so everything has to be like their food, their bathroom, their social lives, their people come and visit, and everything has to be taken care of.
So does this have like an add-on game where you can effectively play like Arkham Asylum, where you can play like you're getting like a super criminal coming in here and you got to have like a separate area?
I think you can name them, and there is solitary confinement, but I don't think there's like a special like this is the Joker sort of.
Oh, that's almost a shame.
But you could name one of the prisoners Joker, like
I think there's a lot of potential for you hold like it's an ultramax security system and like okay, this guy's got super strength, this one has telepathy, this third person here has telekinesis.
That sounds fun, yeah.
And so you got to have the proper defense.
Have the Magneto cell,
the non-metal chamber and all that built up for those sorts of people. I think I could really dig a game like that. So if you're out there and you know how to program, but you're looking for a good game to make. There you go, folks.
I'll have to look in and see if they've done a sequel or any add-ons. Maybe somebody's done like a mod or something.
You could have just some guy whose like superpower is like being rich, because everyone makes a joke about Batman and Iron Man. Like, what's your superpower? I'm rich. And so they wind up being so hard to contain because they wind up effectively bribing all of your guards, and they can just effectively cause a distraction and walk out. And so that's the thing is you wind up having to get guards of proper, like, they'd have to have, like, toughness and loyalty stats and all that, and you want to try and find the best guards and train them up to be the best they can be, and not let that, like, oh, it's my first week on the job, and I'm babysitting the Joker. Nothing could go wrong. So, yeah, you could have some fun stuff with that. I think there's some good potential for a game.
What does the Joker do, though, with, like, new guards? Does he convince them to, like, commit suicide or something? Or
well, sometimes he converts them. I mean, that's how we got Harley Quinn into service.
Oh, was she like a security
She was
guard,
a psychologist. Or? She was assigned to work with him, and have him say stuff. And she was expecting, any funny thing, like he was going to make bad jokes and do the horrible stuff. And he's just sitting there and he stops smiling. And the first thing he says after a long silence is, "My dad beat me when I was young." And he tells this horrible, sad story about how his dad beat him, and the only time he was able to get a laugh out of his dad was when he dressed up like a clown, wearing his dad's oversized clothes, until he wound up accidentally ripping the seat out of his, dad's good work pants, and he got beaten into, the hospital for that. And so she winds up getting the sympathy for him. And then, when he comes back after breaking out, and Batman had really beaten him up, so he's like bloody and all that, she starts trying to protect him, and then she winds up busting him out. So his I guess in a superpower that way is that he is psychopathically smart, and he's able to overcome the defenses of the people.
That's cool. Yeah.
So there's a nice
That's
fun.
His power.
Well, that's the thing is I do believe they detailed that in an episode called Mad Love. I believe maybe is the name of it.
Yeah, of the animated series.
The animated series. So if you can find a copy of that, or if it's playing, it's like, oh hey, one of the old Batman things. The Mad Love is playing. Well, no, you sit down and you watch this episode. It's good stuff. And Arlene Sorkin does the best voice for Harley Quinn. So I'm sorry, Tara Strong, you did a good voice in the Arkham video games. It's got to be Arlene Sorkin. She's the only one for me.
She got like I don't know, a New York accent.
The Jersey accent.
Jersey, okay.
Yeah. I think it's Jersey.
I
have to double check.
Those, yeah,
it's the J.
Northeast things.
I'm not from the area. I just have to take people's, words that this is their accent. So I might be a little off on that. But
hey, which character is more interesting?
Okay.
Is this
Side
another tangent?
Not tangent on a tangent.
Which character is more interesting, Batman or the Joker?
I think the Joker is, because the Batman's reactive sort of thing. He has to react to the Joker. And, feeding on back into the main thing, the Joker does his absurd stuff. He's got,
Okay, yeah.
sometimes he's, I'll shoot people for a gag. Other times he's like, smiling Joker fish, haha. And like, okay, well, how do you get like a Joker funny thing to a fish? Well, I guess you maybe smack a person with a fish, but why is the fish smiling, and what's up with the chemical gas? No one quite gets it except for him. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the Batman is, in this case, he's effectively the reader's surrogate. You can't see the mind of the insane Joker, or maybe, depending on some people how they say it, super sane. He knows he's a comic book character who has to keep doing these horrible, weird, crazy things to get people reading. Otherwise, he ceases to exist, and he actually might die. Everyone might die. He's doing it to make sure his universe survives.
I like this point that you make about the Joker doing absurd things, because that sort of distinguishes him from the Riddler, because the Riddler does things that sort of follow, that do make sense.
That's the thing, is riddle me this, and he'll come up with something that sounds weird, but Batman is always able to deduce the logic behind it.
Yeah, he always connects the dots.
And whereas the Joker has no dots to connect sometimes.
Yeah.
In which case, the Batman might be able to figure out what he's going to do next, but he doesn't like to understand how he knows where the Joker's going to be next, because that implies something about his sanity and lack thereof.
Yeah.
And I really would like to see them differentiate that more in the comics, because most of the Riddler's history has just been that he's a second-rate Joker.
Yeah.
Like, you can't use the Joker. We used him last month. We got to get someone new for here. Well, I'm going to have the Riddler then.
It's like the no name, or the lower name brand.
Yeah, he's Ajax brand Joker instead of the Acme, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's number 2 too. So he tries harder.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, like, trying to make a Coke Pepsi analogy, but I don't think it's even that. It's like maybe Coke and
versus
RC
Cola. Yeah.
There we go.
We were both able to connect the dots there. Okay, I think that makes sense. But whereas the Joker, he's supposed to be, not that he's always written properly that way. Sometimes the Joker isn't done. I think he's done his best when he shows that there are no dots to connect, and I would love to see them just have like a wonderful story that really shows the difference between the two. Like, they're both doing crime waves, and Batman's got to try and solve them both with the whole Bat family.
Like, I don't necessarily know the whole canon, but I wonder if there's ever been a sort of Joker versus Riddler plotline.
I think they did a Joker Riddler Penguin thing to see who was the best of the three, but it was kind of like I'm the bigger, I'm the better one, because, as opposed to showing them two, like, both doing separate crime sprees and showing how the differences are in between them and how different they truly are. That said, I don't know if I would like to see that story played out in the New 52, because the Joker has skinned his own face off and is wearing it like a mask. And I don't like that. It seems it seems like gore and weirdness just to highlight how weird and insane he is. I wear a mask that is my own face. That's not the Joker. The Joker is less obvious than that. He does,
well, in the movie, he does self-mutilate, or I guess we don't know why his cheeks were the way they are.
Well, sometimes they aren't even that way, but I mean, they did a nice take from some of the old Batman, like Joker origins. Because there are some stories where he gets it because a batarang has slashed his mouth, and that's what does it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's one interesting way to think about it. But it's not the only one, and in fact, it has been implied in some cases the Joker does not have an origin. It keeps changing.
Yeah.
And that's the way he likes it. And sometimes he's not even sure of what his origin is at any given point. Because he's aware he's a comic book character and that his origin hasn't been given.
I suppose you might need that too. Like, as far as a fictional, the keeping the fictional world together, you might need to leave that undefined.
Well, especially for someone as absurd as the Joker, I think it plays extra well. Because that way it's basically like, I will write a story about the Joker, this will be his background for this time, and it explains it for the length of the storyline. Next time around he might have the second origin, a third or potential origin, or maybe even a fourth. Or maybe I just don't even care, he's just doing this today. I think it works out decently. And I think it fits more thematically for someone as crazy as the Joker. Does it work as well for, like someone like Edward Nygma? No. Edward Nygma is a man about facts and riddles and all that, and so his background enhances who he is. The Joker's lack of background enhances who he is.
Yeah.
So, I think that's how that works. But I gotta say, for the absurd stuff, just in general, I can't imagine it being done very well as an improv style. For something like the Joker, for Douglas Adams, it almost has to be something like you script and then come back to double check to make sure there's like no proper connection. It is this weird craziness.
Okay, because yeah, that's sort of what I've been exploring a little bit in the improv classes I've been taking, is that you kind of, in improv, you kind of have to just drag things out of nowhere. You have to just snap your fingers and be able to come up with an idea of, you know, I'm this character, like I'm a bus driver and I'm driving a bus, you know, just random, you have to be very quickly to be able to come up with those characters, and not just because sometimes in improv it's like the audience gets to decide that, but then you have to add the details, and so you have to, I guess at that point it's no longer out of nowhere. It's always connected. It's always like what's the next.
Build up from what you've got. Say yes and.
Yeah, exactly. It's always what's the next obvious step. So
and I mean that's one of the reasons why if you're good at improv, you become a big name like Ryan Stiles or Colin Mockery.
Mm-hmm.
They are. I mean, okay, and it's not to say that they're the only ones on the Whose Line Is It Anyways program that are the greatest, because I mean, I think anyone they manage to get on there for the rotating fourth seat is very much worthy to be in there. But they'll give them props and they'll say, you know, think what you can come up with for this. If you can do that, that makes you great, and that's something you really got to learn. But that's also why you have to be either really good at it or go back to a script if you're going to be doing your out of nowhere absurdities. Because it's one of the things that if it works, it's great, it's wonderful. It keeps people thinking like, I don't know what's going to happen next. I got to pay attention. But if you do it wrong, it's like it almost reeks of you tried too hard. Just let it flow, let it come on out.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, I have seen some things where it's like, wow, these guys were trying way too hard to be random, and it really doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing about improv is so often it fails, and they're always moving on to the next thing, the next item. It's like, okay, that didn't work, move on. You know, keep it moving, keep it fast. Which is so. Yeah, if you're not improving, if you're like actually writing, you might be like painstakingly careful to make sure there's absolutely zero connections you can draw with supposedly a random element. You're like, okay, I need a random element. Here's a whale, you know, but I have to make sure that it has no sort of obvious connections.
What would a whale be doing? Probably just looking at stuff. So I'll make the whale doing something else other than that. The whale is actually thinking about its nature of existence, and it's already self-aware.
There you go.
And so they take off from that way into the unexpected. But I mean, just the amount of times I've seen, and it's like, you have to let it flow. When people see it, like, I'm going to take a defense against what I just said.
Sure. Yeah.
For an example, was the Freakazoid TV series.
Okay. Yeah.
That was technically scripted and all that, and it does seem very random.
Yeah.
But the reason why it still has that whole like almost like an improv feel to it was because they had to get things done on such a tight schedule they didn't have time to go back and revise. So they were basically playing improv, you know, as they were all sitting around writing the script, and then they just didn't have a chance to come back to it. So that's why it still has the improv feel through the whole thing, even though that one is scripted.
Okay, so they sort of leave things in.
They managed to get the best of both worlds. Some things worked well, some things didn't.
Yeah.
They apologize for the things that people just didn't seem to get. It seemed good when they were writing it at the time, they'll say.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, that's a very hard one to meet in that way. But it does meet the best of both worlds. So if you can do that, oh my goodness.
I'll mention also, like, a big tool that we have in the world of D&D and gaming is we have our random generators. We have our dice. We have our tables.
How many random tables have I made already? I got fish. I got genres. I got different, alien types, things attacking you.
Yeah. I
got all sorts of fun little random tables.
And that's a great way to just pull it out. Like, you don't even... There's no thinking involved. There's no human... except, I guess, the person who designed the table. But
well, I mean, what you could do is just spend an afternoon coming up with ideas, like looking around, flashing through the TV. Oh, that gives me an idea on this. That gives me an idea on that. And every idea you write onto a playing card. And then when you fill up the playing cards, okay, now I'm going to go write that story. I need something from my random guy now. Shuffle your deck of cards. Yeah. There's the random bit for that.
Yeah.
Not always perfect. Some things just don't seem to flow right, or maybe they do seem easily connected. Oh, I can totally see a connection between that and what was the random thing.
Well, it's funny, yeah, because readers don't always appreciate, just because obviously you're telling a story for a reason, and if just something random happens, then why is that even why did you even mention that? You didn't mention that the character went to the bathroom halfway through whatever scene, so why do you mention that some random thing happened?
It does give sense to the nature of the character and what they can and
illuminate.
Cannot do. I recall one story for Wolverine comics. He was fighting against like a superior opponent, and the opponent was like a tactical genius. And he, put like a nice little tally scar on his body whenever he killed a notable person, and his body was covered with this tally. And turns out the man was psychic. Any move you thought, like if you're a good tactician, you will think 3 or 4 moves in advance.
Yeah, sure.
He was able to see that, and he knows what you're doing. He can outplay you. He was like a chess master because he knew your moves ahead of time.
Okay.
And so how does Wolverine wind up beating him?
By not thinking.
Going into a berserker rage and just start. And the guy can't counter what he cannot see for the future. And so he winds up being just a well-trained athlete against a guy with very nasty claws and a very angry disposition with a regeneration factor. He can't beat that.
Yeah.
And so he winds up just getting his arse handed to him by Logan in that case.
Actually, is it possible to capture Wolverine? Can you tie him up and...
Oh yeah, that's been happened several times. I mean that's kind of like every third storyline for his stuff.
But can he pretty much automatically eventually escape? Like
depending on how it goes, but yes. I mean, I remember another story with Wolverine how it was during when he had lost the adamantium from his skeleton, so all he had was regular bone in his skeleton.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
But he still had regeneration.
Yeah. And so what he wound up doing was he got out of his manacle by breaking his hand into several pieces until he could slip the hand through the manacle, and then just making sure to set the bone back properly as it regenerated. And then, he's out. And so that was like something he wouldn't be able to do if he had the adamantium in there, because he can't break adamantium in there.
Oh, good
but
point.
then again, if he had the adamantium, he would have been able to have the claws and been able to try and pop something and cut the the chain.
Yeah.
But he can't do that with bone claws. Other than that, try hitting him with irradiated bullets. It slows down his regeneration factor and pretty much drives him loopy for a while. It's better than alcohol. One of the only ways you can properly have surgery on him, too.
So is it uranium, like that kind of deal?
Anything radioactive will slow down his... It will occupy his regeneration factor, and so it'll wind up slowing it down.
Yeah.
So that, you can really hurt him. Magic stuff seems to hurt as well. I recall him taking 2 days to heal from getting his arse handed to him by the Wendigo.
Yeah.
He got gutted pretty badly on that one.
Yeah,
Mind you, the Wendigo is a pretty fearsome foe. I recall one Hostess Twinkies ad where the Wendigo and the Abomination managed to hit the Hulk so hard his head smoked. Huh. Like, how hard do you have to hit a person before the frictional forces cause smoke? That's pretty hard. And then, some kids found the Hulk in a crater down there, fed him some Twinkies, and the Hulk goes off to fight them again. This time, with some, Twinkies in his belly, and some kids on his shoulder. I have no idea how that fight went. The story ended there because it was just a Twinkies commercial.
They didn't show that part.
I imagine it did not end well.
He hit them with the kids.
I don't know. Technically, it'd be better off if you ripped up a tree and hit them with that. But, suffice to say, the Wendigo can hit hard enough to cause frictional forces to imitate, like starting a fire.
Now, when you say
harsh.
Wendigo, is this a character, or is this like sort of the mythological Wendigo?
Or is this another
supervillain?
The Wendigo is both a supervillain as well as something that can happen to people.
Yeah.
In the mythology of that, it's a curse. Anyone in Canada that eats the flesh of another person gets affected by the curse of the Wendigo and becomes one.
Yeah.
And so you'll have wonderful stories about, is this Wendigo the other Wendigo, or what's going on? And so you get wonderful dark stories like this Wendigo has only 3 fingers on his one hand because he ate his own flesh to survive. And that's now I know it's not the other Wendigo we fought before.
It's a different Wendigo.
There was one case, I believe in Earth X, where it was an entire tribe of Boy Scouts gets lost out in the woods, and they wind up having to eat one of them to survive, and so you have an entire scout troop of Wendigos.
Cool.
Yeah, and so long story short, I mean, in the Marvel universe, the Canadian government is really, really evil. They do horrible experimentations, do absolutely dickish things. On the other hand, they are in a nation that has weird things happen, like any cannibalism that occurs causes a superpowered monster to pop up.
Okay, cool.
Like, I remember there was like one guy who wound up, he was like an evil sorcerer who got his power from eating the bodies of others. So he needs to eat Wolverine. Wolverine's got regeneration, so that's like a superpower in there. And he wound up eating flesh in Canada, and he wound up becoming a Wendigo. But he got shunted to in Marvel Canada, they have like abominations, like eldritch Cthulian abominations as like an entire pantheon of things. And so they have an entire, like the gods, like the Norse, Inuit gods, they exist, and they're pretty much busy just making sure these things don't get out and nobody summons them, because damn it, it's kind of hard to get them back. It's been said if they get out of their natural prison plane for 20 minutes, that's basically it for Earth. It's a write-off. So these things are something that could possibly tangle with Galactus and hold their own. So yeah, Canada is an evil government, but I mean, compared to what else is in the land, they're like the least evil of a bad lot. So yeah, don't feel bad that Canada's evil in the Marvel universe. They're the best you can hope for. Everything else is worse. C'est la vie.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
But and that's the thing is and that's considered absurdist as well, because I mean, Canada's full of evil people, eh? Like where the hell do you get that from? I mean, in our world, Canada's got that weird perception of us. Oh, we're always happy, always apologizing, and you just can't get us angry.
Yeah, well, I guess that's where you can get absurdist, like sort of you can get the seeds, because you start with this sort of stereotype and then reverse it or take what would contradict it, and that will be surprising to people, because they're like, oh, I thought Canada was all nice and stuff.
Canada is worse than the Soviet Union as seen by H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay.
We are a dark, horrible nation there.
In the Marvel, yeah. Well, and then from there you can say, well, it is. Going back to conspiracies, it is perceived as peaceful because that's what they want you to think. Because
the evil government is just that good at keeping the peace. Sure, the Norse gods, the North gods, the Norse gods would be like Thor and his ilk, who, by the way, are not helping at all. They're busy in Asgard doing whatever it is they do, or spending time in New York. No one decides to go help out to make sure these horrible things are kept locked up. Long story short, that's what happened to the evil, wizard who became the Wendigo. He tried to bring them out, and they pushed him through, and then he got stuck with a lot of things that were much worse than an evil sorcerer with superpowers. Which is, I think, a very nice, delicious, ironic ending. But just the absurdity of the whole thing winds up playing against it, because I mean, they have things that they just, I mean, it makes like sometimes no sense and sometimes less than no sense, because they got like the superhero who's got their super suit allows them to move tectonic things, and so they can like bring up like like earthquakes and like volcanic eruptions, and one person says like, you can't do that. This place is geographically stable. There is nothing,
Yeah, the middle of the Canadian Shield.
Yeah, why? How are you getting lava to erupt here? You'd have to go down like several miles. How are you bringing that up, in a heartbeat sort of thing? And that's never even answered. It's never addressed. They say, oh yes, I can, manipulate, the geo patterns of the Earth, and they're like, but that doesn't make any sense. And like, it doesn't matter. Canada, crazy evil. And then you got a midget called Puck who just hits everyone really hard and has the most super stereotypical accent ever. Whatever. Everyone loves him. No one cares.
As in Hockey Puck or Puck the Fairy?
Maybe
a little of both.
That's actually a play on words, because he was possessed sort of thing by one of them, impish demons that wound up contorting his body from regular height down to, his current Puck height. And yeah, he's super dense and super tough, so, getting hit by him is like getting hit in the face with a hockey puck.
Oh, okay.
So, it's one of those nice double, meanings sort of thing.
Yeah.
But,
well, we've been going almost 90 minutes. I want to remind our listeners that we have an email address, in case we got anything wrong, or in case you have something to add to anything that we're talking about.
We never even touched on absurdist music. I mean, you can call Weird Al absurdist, but he really has his connections. You can see where he's going to with things, and he has patterns he follows.
Yeah. What's absurd? Like Radiohead? Would that be absurd?
I think absurdist might be those people that are just, like trying to work with atonal stuff, so it's just like almost random noise.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent to musical absurdity because there's no connection. It's just completely weird and out there.
Yeah, just noise or sound. Although, there's always some kind of pattern. That's all.
That's the thing. Is they got some people that are working out like, okay, I've got a random thing. Like I've heard Pi played as music. They convert it to like a bass 8.
Well, so look for that in the YouTube. I'll put a link. I think I've seen a few.
And that's
YouTube
as close
videos.
to pure randomization as I think you can possibly get for music.
It's random for all intents and purposes. Yeah.
It doesn't sound that bad though. I will say that. I've heard it, and it has, not exactly a pattern, but it does have a nice style.
Yeah, so it would be really random. Think up another random example and send it our way. We will read it, and also contact us on the blog page. There's a little comment box. Also on Facebook, you can interact with us on our Facebook page. Facebook.com/The Simulationist. We also have YouTube.
So if you got Google Plus, you can leave a message.
We're also on Google Plus, and we're also. I'm on Twitter. Spaceboot #1. Spaceboot1 is my @sign. You're not on Twitter yet, are you?
Not yet. Okay. I'm still thinking up a really sweet name for myself.
Okay.
It's getting more difficult the more it gets there.
Yeah.
Oh, unfortunately though, if you are in Turkey, you can't get a hold of us on Twitter. They've shut that down there.
Yeah, that's another thing. But that's a whole other.
That seems almost absurdist to me. They shut it down because it's like, they were making fun of our, like dictatorial style. Was it president, prime minister, head honcho?
Yeah, Prime Minister Erdogan.
So he shuts down Twitter in the country.
Yeah.
That seems absurd.
Yeah, and I don't understand why he wouldn't learn from from the Arab Spring and whatever, but I guess.
Well, at least he's the only one trying to shut that sort of thing down. Everyone else says, they're rioting against us, but what are we going to do? We'll just leave the internet open, whatever. At least he's playing something technically smarter there, so I guess maybe not absurd, just really dickish.
I guess so, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
That's it. So send comments to all of our Facebook, facial media. I
mean, I got some good facial hair, but there's not like a facial hair book sort of thing.
Facial book?
Yeah.
There might be. Anyways, that's not important. What else did I want to mention? I did sign up for MySpace, but only on a personal level, so I have a personal page. I couldn't figure out how to make a page specifically for the show, so I don't think we count as being on MySpace. So I'm finally wrong. We do technically have a presence on MySpace. Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of do, I guess. In that case, I'm going to go with Orkut. We don't have anything with that. Okay. It's big in Asia, some parts. Okay, well, there's my next challenge. Challenge accepted. That and let's see. I'll find something else after you get to there. Don't worry. Anything you can branch us out to, I'll find something else. Fine. Okay. Well, sure. Why not? Why not keep? It's a game. So let's see. That's everything. The simulationist@gmail.com is our email address. I think I said that. And take care out there and think random thoughts. I guess that's it. So thanks for listening, Sven.